Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Guest, Vice Director of Finance and General Administration of Malang State Polytechnic, Polynema, Vice Director of Student Affairs of Malang State Polytechnic, Vice Director of Cooperation and Development of Malang State Polytechnic, Head of Accounting Department and Head of Business Administration Department, Malang State Polytechnic, Director of STIA Malang Kuceswara or the representative, Banjarmasin State Polytechnic Director or the representative, especially the honorable guest speakers, Prof. Adonis Immanuel Frakakis, Director and CIO of Zurich Elite Business School, Switzerland, Associate Professor Dr. Mira Kartiwi from International Islamic University, Malaysia, Associate Professor Jati Kasuma Ali from University Technology Mara, Malaysia. The Honorable all participants of the second EMBC International Conference 2020. Let us first thank to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, God Almighty, compassionate and merciful, because only with blessing of His mercy and approval can we all gather here to follow the event's second annual Management, Business and Economic Conference with the themes Business and Information System Issues toward a Global Interconnected Society, Challenges during and after pandemic. Please let us give our greeting to the great Prophet Muhammad. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference is the second international conference organized by Polynema, which is specially only related to the social sector, especially management, business, and economics. The conference aims to bring together researchers and practitioners, students, and representatives of civil society organizations in scientific forum, and also to share and discuss theoretical and practical knowledge about innovation in management, business, and economics. In particular, this conference can be used as a scientific forum to accommodate discussion among young researchers from Indonesia in the field of applied science and engineering. Ladies and gentlemen, we are actually facing a global challenge as we encounter it together, namely the COVID-19 pandemic, which has had a profound impact on all facets of life. To this are therefore urgently required to find solutions to these problems, in particular those relating to business and information systems. Moreover, in the modern age of Industrial Revolution 4.0, the problem of technology and information system have become an inseparable part of the corporate and economic landscape. This issue is also relevant to the education sector, where we are currently being asked to rapidly adapt to so that all teaching and learning activities can be carried out using information system technology. Ladies and gentlemen, as part of active participant in supporting scientific development in business and management, Polynema support in organizing this international conference. We hope it could create a positive contribution in research and teaching in the economic fields. Hopefully, the collaboration between Polynema, STI Malangkuceswara, and Banjarmasin Polytechnic and other higher education institutions present here can continue to be improved in the future. Finally, congratulations on joining the IMBEC International Conference and the whole series of activities. Hopefully, this activity will benefit all parties. I officially open this conference. Have a good discussion. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Okay, can anybody hear me? Okay, can anybody hear me? Yep. Okay. All right. I can present from my side, yes. So as you can see, the background is a little bit interesting because I didn't expect we're going to start earlier. But anyway, it's a blessing in disguise, I hope. So let me just share the screen and then we can start the presentation, inshallah. Okay, so just want to confirm again the sound, my voice is clear, right? Okay, good. Would you mind to stop screen sharing from your side so I can share mine? Yeah. All right, thank you. Okay, so this will be the first slides of mine. There's a lot of mishaps today, but alhamdulillah, I think that's always a good thing of every mishaps that happen in our life, and inshallah we can still proceed with our program. And then I guess there's another blessing is that you can sort of see what is the view in KL because I'm actually on the road. All right. Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon to all participants and to moderators, long time friend. Sorry, you haven't seen your screen yet? Okay. Can you see mine? This one, the first slides? It's already shared. Okay, all right. Yeah, so just to recap the point that I shared just now. So thank you to moderators and to committee of AMBC, the AMBAC 2020. This is the second conference, and I'm very honored, very humbled to actually receive the invitations. It's a very prestigious conference, and to actually be invited in these sessions and to keynote with Prof. Uh, from Zurich Elite Business School is just an awesome experience. It's a very honored to be here. And Dr. Indah is actually my long time friend. So she's my senior. So we both in Wollongong. So such a good time to actually uh, meet the long-time friends again. And I really hope that my presentations today also provides opportunities for all other participants to actually build the research collaborations with International Islamic University in Malaysia. Okay, so if I can share my presentation today. So I hope you can see the full screen, yeah? Just please let me know if something is blocking your way because I have my Zoom camera, uh, camera here with me. So just want to make sure it doesn't block your way. Okay. All right. So the topic for today is basically the leveraging data resource for business survival, and inspirations comes from the many cases that I have gone through these couple of weeks, especially in assisting some small medium enterprises to actually sort of uncover the true potential of the data that they have in the business. So I will give you a couple of sort of the case studies in which we can actually look at too, and then we can actually come up with some kind of, hopefully we can actually come up with some kind of strategies which actually can be used and implemented for business to actually survive in these difficult times. All right, so if I can just introduce myself a bit, which I think Dr. Indah have done a very extensive introductions, and it's really an honor to actually being, and I feel really humbled to actually being introduced in such uh, ways. So I really thank you for the kind introductions. Okay, so you would have this as part of my slide, just in case you would want to have a look on the past experiences that I have. Um, and what I'm going to go through today, basically, we're going to go through the some kind of trigger for discussions. I would like to sort of inquire you rather than so much of giving you the lecture on how to actually survive the COVID-19 for business. But instead, I will start with some kind of questions to stimulate our discussion later, or whether to look at whether the COVID-19 is actually a crisis or an opportunity. And then we're going to look at the notions of big data or big data, and whether it is actually a hype or a hope. Okay, and then we look at the some case studies, and then some strategies later on. All right, so what I want to highlight today is basically, first, let's look at the current scenarios of the current situations in which we're actually having such a really unprecedented time. We have to go through a major crisis, which honestly, I wouldn't think of that my lifetime would have to encounter these kind of experiences. I could imagine if from the business perspective, I know, and I've met a couple of entrepreneurs which practically they are in the edge of giving up due to some challenges that they have in running the day-to-day operations. But in some other ways, there are also some um, issues which can actually be twofold. I mean, like, we can actually look at it as an opportunity, but in what way? So let's have a look at it later on. So one thing that I want to highlight is that, yes, I acknowledge the crisis that we have, I acknowledge the issues that we have, and I acknowledge the kind of difficulties that business have to encounter in these difficult times. I don't deny it when I say there's an opportunity, but I think we should also look at some other perspective in which we can actually address these issues. So just to give you a flavor of what is the current scenario, what is the current situations of COVID-19 globally, I'm not going to pinpoint certain countries because I think that would be, it won't do much justice to those who actually put an effort to rectify things. So, which I think all nations is trying to rectify the situations. So let me just highlight the current situations globally. So if you have a look on the WHO websites, as you can see, the current numbers of those being infected have exceeds 26 million. Okay, so something that we didn't actually anticipated earlier. In fact, many people speculated in the early of its spread. Many people speculated that it won't even reach 10 million. But now, as you can see, we have actually exceeds the number of what people have speculated earlier. And not to mention the numbers of death, we have exceeds 860,000, which is a very devastating number. And again, this is not something that we can look at it lightly. Okay, so this is the actual reality of how the pandemics have actually affected the globally. Okay, and as you can see in here, perhaps I can sort of give the idea of how each countries actually have taken the steps or to mitigate the kind of scenario, the kind of situations that have to address in that country. So as you can see, some of the countries actually able to mitigate quickly. As you can see, for example, here in New Zealand, and they're actually able to mitigate up to the number of times they managed to make it into 0 cases. There are ups and downs for sure, but in some cases, they actually, as you can see, there are steps that they actually have implemented, and it's quite effective to reduce the number of cases. On the other hand, we can also have a look here. There are countries which are basically struggling to address the issues, perhaps due to some economical reason, which I think we're going to address that later, and as well as the behavior. So this kind of the manifolds of problems that we have to acknowledge, and it is not something that we can close one of our eyes and then make a decisions based on partial informations, because the fact that we have here the number of cases in many countries are increasing is not because of they haven't done um, any steps to mitigate it, but perhaps the approach that was taken was not efficient enough or effective enough to address the multiple faults of the problems. And if you have a look here, I think it's quite interesting. One of the reports released by Federations of American Scientists, where actually they compare and contrast the number of reports that come from the OECD report, OECD Economic Outlook, the World Economic Outlook, the World Bank report, the IMF report. So they're actually trying, sorry, the IMF report. So as you can see in here, they are trying to compare the kind of the predictions that how COVID may actually affect the economy of a country. Some people actually, before this report release, many actually speculated that developing countries were actually affected the most. But based on the predictions, as you can see in here, as much as it is affected developing countries, but it is not as severe as what developed countries or advanced countries, they call it here. The impact is not as severe as how it affects the advanced countries. So we might actually think what goes right or wrong here when different countries actually affected, especially level of economy actually affected in different way by COVID-19. The same kind of virus affecting different way for different level of economics, which I think this actually triggers a lot of debates and the kind of approach that we should actually promote in addressing the issues. So these are some of the findings that quite interesting, I think, for us to start to look at, especially in to come up in promoting to the survivability of these businesses in these difficult times. Okay, so there are hopes. What I want to highlight is that from this there are some kind of opportunities or hopes where developing countries can actually survive, uh, or even better, we can actually expedite the survival process. Okay. All right. Another issues that actually comes with COVID-19 is that globally, as you can see here, ILO have released a report where quite a number of sectors are affected dramatically by the pandemic. So as you can see in here, domestically, in 15 March 2020, 49.3% of domestic workers have been impacted. So it could be in terms of loss of jobs or reduce of hours of work. In 15 May, it has increased up to 73.7, and in 4th June, although there's some improvement, but it is not as promising as what we would expect, although some of the countries have lifted up the MCO or the lockdown, still improvement is not as expected, which is kind of understood in these scenarios where some businesses are still trying to recover from the loss they experienced during the lockdown. All right. So what I want to highlight is that this pandemic, not only it actually affected the health sectors or the health issues of the country, but also it actually affect the economic and social. And now we're going to look at it from, as I said, we're going to look at it from multifolds. We cannot just address the issues of health-related issues. We have to also address the notions of how we can actually improve in terms of economic and how it actually improve in terms of social. So we've talked about, so what I want to highlight is that I've given you a global flavor, a global overview of what is happening globally. And let's look into our specific topic for today. Right, so before I get to the next topic, I would just want to highlight my questions that I posited earlier, whether the COVID-19 is actually offers a crisis, whether it is actually a crisis or it actually offers an opportunity. Or shall we think of this scenario that COVID is actually both crisis and an opportunity? So I would leave it with to the participants to decide. Okay, so but I hope by giving that notions of that we should look at from different perspective that perhaps give you some ideas. It is time for us to sort of reassess the situations. Okay, so the next questions that I want to sort of posit here is what is the opportunity? If it's an opportunity, then what is the opportunity that COVID-19 pandemic can offer to a business? So out of the many opportunities that I sort of identify from many scenarios, from many entrepreneurs that I have met with, and then they actually requested for the assistance to sort of, as I said earlier, to sort of uncover the asset that they have, which in this case the assumptions of the data is an asset. So out of that many things that I have identified, one thing that I know for sure is actually this pandemic offers the opportunities for them to have some time. Okay, so have some time to leverage the data resources. They have been having this understanding that data is an asset. Okay, maybe before I get to that, actually a few slides next. So let me just highlight on the issues of data first, because I know there's a hype on big data, but I acknowledge that the rapid development of IT and the advance of internet has significantly improved the process of keeping, finding, and sharing information. Well, in this case, that the fact that the storage is getting cheaper, I think we couldn't. We perhaps couldn't be bothered if that's the scenarios that we have in much of the business, I can see it is that way, where we couldn't be bothered to actually think about how much data I have, and in fact, rather than filtering, rather than thinking about shifting data, about uh, flag or categorizing whether data is useful or not useful, I think most of us, we opt for buying a bigger storage instead. Okay, so this is why the technology actually have shaped our behavior, looking at the on how we look at the data. Okay, due to the much cheaper cost to actually keeping it and sharing it. Okay, okay. So the problem is, does this hyper amount of data allow us to distinguish between good and bad information? Let's reflect on our own experience. We have so much data about us, be that in social media, be that in our daily instant messaging, WhatsApp, Telegram, what's not. So we have so much data about us, about people surrounding us. Um, let's think about it. Is all of those informations actually good informations? Have those informations actually allow us to make a better decisions? Or actually we are so distracted in many informations, we couldn't even know which information is good or bad. We need to think about what is current information, or most of the information that we have is actually obsolete. Um, is it accurate, or it's actually inaccurate? Is it complete, or is it actually partial? Is it relevant, or is actually irrelevant? So we have this kind of issues, if I'm not exaggerating on the kind of data that we have. I think these are the issues that we have with the data that we currently hold in business or for personal uh, in personal life or in business. These are the kind of data that we have. Some of the data has been obsolete, some of the data is incomplete, some of the data is actually irrelevant, and some of the data is actually inaccurate. And the example is just um, too much for us to actually highlight to which one is one. But I think I'm really sure you'll get the sense of what is uh, some of the data that we have which falls into those categories. So the questions again, if I may ask, let's look at the amount of data that we have, the varieties of data that we have, the speed of the data that we have, which actually constitute big data, and this is how people actually understand big data. So the question is it a hope or a hype? Okay, this is a very simple questions, but I think most of the discussions that I have, many of the business couldn't even answer whether, or confidently answer whether it is actually a hope. Okay, so many would still find it that they're actually having it because other people have it, which in this case it would categorize as a hype. So yeah, so this is some of the issues perhaps that we can sort of consider to think and rethink. Okay, learn and unlearn. Right. Let's have a look at some of the examples that I have encountered recently when assisting. As I said, when I have assisted, just I think to this past 2 weeks, I have been assigned to assist a couple of SMEs, mainly from food and F&B sectors, food and beverages sectors. So let me just highlight some of the cases that very frequently occur. Okay, so perhaps this gives you some ideas on why we should start to look at data resource as a means and ways to address the issues in these unprecedented times. Okay, so let's have a look on the shock demand and on food and beverage industry during COVID-19. So as you can see, which I think it happens, I'm very sure it's also happened in Indonesia, right, Bu Indah, where there's times where you really have to queue a long way to actually get into the supermarket, buy some foods, and eventually you find out the shelf is just empty or half empty. This actually happens here, which I very sure it also happens to the neighboring countries. There are shock demand, and then many people thought that it will actually happen for quite sometimes. Which I think now with we have actually in Malaysia we have lifted the lockdown since, if I'm mistaken, June or even May. I think we have started to lift up the lockdown, and where we can actually started to travel. But still, in terms of food and beverages, they are still there. Okay, and in fact, most of the SMEs that I have spoken with, they are still having an urge demand, like they are still having a high demand in terms of the amount that being ordered by different supermarkets or different shops, and this triggers them on whether we can actually whether this is time for us to actually expedite the growth of the business. So most of the concern that actually raised during the discussion was, can my business fulfill the demand? So all this while they've been getting into the routine or getting into the habits of, let's just purchase whatever orders comes in. It's very hard to find some of these entrepreneurs who think that we should expand. Okay, so most of the discussions that I have mainly is just that all this while they have been getting into the routine of producing certain amount because that's what has been that's the amount of that has been comes into the business. So not so much of business expansion, but how to cope with the demand. So now when they have the influx of demand, they are starting to think this is beyond my expectation. So the thought is, can I fulfill the demand, or if it is, can my business actually have the capacity to produce such amount or such demand, such amount of productions? So these are the common concern. So another concern that they have when I ask, okay, so you want to assess the capacity. Do you have any data? And most of the answers is that yes, we have so much data, but I have no idea how to use it. So in this case, we have been getting into that habits of that. As long as I have the data, eventually I will be able to use it. But with these scenarios, it's not about eventually. The problem is whether the data that you have is actually meaningful enough for us to actually make decisions on. So most of the issues that I have encountered is that they have a very solid financial data. Okay, so they have a very good financial data. In fact, many of them they actually have procured off the shelf, if not bespoke kind of software to taking care of their financial data. But I think it's not enough to actually assess the capacity of productions. We need to look at some of the data. So what about the other data? Productions is kind of there, but not really there. I'm not sure how to explain it. So it's there, it's on the spreadsheets, but they are not sure whether it's a complete kind of data, but they said the effort is there at least. So some stuff is actually trying to key in the information. And inventory, again, the same issues with production. Some of the inventory is done manually on the paper. Some of the inventory actually done on spreadsheets or on a system. But again, to what extent it is actually offer a relevant or a complete kind of data, they cannot say with confidence that yes, we do have the data to actually make decisions on. Again, the same scenarios with customer. They've been collecting a lot of data, especially now during the pandemic. The government have actually promoted the use of MySejahtera. This is one of the mobile app, in which you can actually use it to any kind of business establishment. You have to record where you are. So the business actually make use of this data to sort of keep track of the potential customers, because initially it's actually meant for keep tracking the mobilities of the citizens, but some business actually make use of it to keep track the potential customers. But again, I have this all customers data, but how do I use it? The common understanding that most of these entrepreneurs have, be that small businesses or large businesses, is the I shouldn't say it's a false belief, but there could be some misunderstanding on what this term actually means when someone said data is an asset. Okay, so when someone said data is an asset, and this actually very frequently coined in in 20, around early 2000, especially when people have started to realize the importance of internet and how it actually generates the data on its velocity to generate the data. And suddenly on 2010, businesses, some of the big companies, which I'm not going to mention, have coined the term big data, so everybody is getting to the hype. So when everybody is getting to the hype, and when they heard that data is an asset, businesses is in the mode of collecting. But again, the issue is, if data is an asset, how would you? Asset means that you can bring it to the bank, and bank can actually evaluate, can actually do some valuations of your asset, right? So it has to be some tangible kind of uh, values in which you can actually uh, know how much it is you are keeping. So because of that, many debates, especially in 2000, I think around 2016, there has been one article released by um, there's one IT company which actually triggers the ideas of that. If data is not an asset, how to actually view, if data is not an asset, then how we actually view it, because obviously many of the companies are suffering from having a lot of data, but they don't actually generate value out of it. So many of the consensus that comes in is actually to turn into new notions of how we should look at the data, rather than looking at the data as an asset. Maybe we should look at the data as a resource. Okay, so as with any other resource that you have, you would need to actually think of how to make use of it. Okay. All right. But if I pass my time, so please just remind me. Okay. Sometimes when I get too excited, I just couldn't. I just don't realize how much time I have. All right. Okay. So another thing that I would want to highlight is that because we have been having a lot of. All right. Okay. Good. Alhamdulillah. All right. So because I still have plenty of slides to cover. Okay. All right. Thanks. Great, great, great. Thank you. So I don't think I would go with 20 minutes, but hopefully in the next 10 minutes or so, we can sort of start the discussions. All right. Okay. Um, so this is what I want to sort of raise, where when we have been having all these kind of data, the increased volume of data and informations can undermine the capacity of companies to discern quality from non-quality data. And this is a recent article by Casario and Franco, and I'm very much relate to this, especially through a series of consultancy experience. This is the most common issues that occur, where people get excited to collect, as I said earlier, but when it comes to knowing which data that actually will be useful for your decision making, that when the discussions kind of stop. Okay, so uh, this is the kind of situations that we have. Especially now, we really have to look at the data because we really want to see whether our business can actually survive in certain kind of scenario, in difficult scenarios where we have to perhaps boost the capacity of productions, or making sure that the number of staff that we have is of optimal level, because we don't want to pay a lot of staff and yet they don't have much things to do because of our business slowing down. Okay, so these are the kind of issues that perhaps we started to it is the critical time for us to start looking at it. Okay, I I when I look at the issues and when I go through some of the books, especially from the practitioner's perspective, those in data management, especially in data analytics, um, have this kind of mindset where we cannot just jump to the analytics. Okay, so yes, these businesses have a lot of data, but to actually take things for granted, take the data for granted without actually assessing the quality of the data, without actually looking at how relevant it is to our decision making, we would end up with the same kind of situations where there are potential action point, but we cannot actually make sense out of it. So I would very much relate to this point that Albert Einstein had when he mentioned that if I had only an hour to solve a problem, if I only have an hour to solve a problem, I will spend 55 minutes to define the problem and 5 minutes to actually find the solutions. And this is the very critical things that the business should also understand. When we have these questions, when we have these issues of that I have to boost my capacity production, I have to boost my business capacity productions, we have to think about what is the actual problems that we want to address here. Okay, so is it only about the making sure that the machine is running 24 hours and having an extra manpower to actually validate the machine? Is it all about that? Okay, so this is something that perhaps we should really stop, think, and then assess whether this is the actual problems that we have to address. Okay, so take times, think, and redefine and define the problems before we try to rush into solutions. So let's take the analogy. Sometimes if I highlight it in that way, okay. So usually in every sessions, if I highlight in that particular manner, people will start to think it's too abstract. Okay, it's too conceptual. Let's get something that close to us. So I put the analogy of that. Say we want to travel, which I think everybody can relate with, and I'm very sure in this forum everybody can relate with. Say we want to travel. Okay, so now I'm about to travel. When I'm about to travel, we might have we might have some information, the least that we can actually obtain. We can actually look at the Google Maps and look at the amount of time that we actually need to get into our destinations. So when we look at our route here, okay, so as you can see in here, it's 44 minutes. It is the fastest route. Google tells us it is the fastest route, and it is based on the usual traffic. We can have some sort of sense. Okay, so it's 44 minutes driving. I would be there in about, like, say if I'm leaving at 1 p.m. I will get there by 1:45 p.m. At least. Okay, so you already have some expectations, but is this the only information you need? Say I have additional information, but I cannot disclose it to you. Okay, I know that there will be a number of roadblocks where it's going to be a long queue, a long traffic jam, and there will be riots that is scheduled like about 15 minutes. So you usually won't get past that road in about 44 minutes. If I give these informations to you before you actually started to travel, okay, you might have some, if I give this information to you before you travel, you might have some kind of a proper assessment of the situation. I shouldn't leave. If I want to get there in about 44 minutes, I shouldn't leave in 1 p.m. If I have to get there by 2, I shouldn't leave at 1 p.m. So maybe I should like leave at 11 p.m. 11 a.m. I should leave at 11 a.m. or maybe a day before. Okay, or trying to find other routes. So imagine if you don't have this information and you really have to make sure that you get there by 1:45 or by 2 p.m. and it is a very important event that you have to attend there. It's like, for example, someone's wedding, which you wouldn't miss anything you won't miss anything on the word to actually miss it. Okay, I'm very sure we might reassess our objective. Okay, so in this case, our objective is just not about getting there. Our objective is just not about getting to the destinations, but our objective is that we have to get there on time. By hook or crook, we have to get there on time. So your objective have changed. The information that you need is also changed. So when we have this kind of issues, we have to reassess now the fact that we want to survive the business. What is your objective? Is the objective is just as a matter of running the day-to-day operations, having demand and then deliver the product tomorrow? What about some of the business is actually able to use the information they have? They have been collecting the right data, and then now they're able to sort of find out the capacity of productions, and they can actually get into the buyers and said, I will be able to fulfill that. You have just lost the opportunities because your competitors have just able to deliver the same the amount that you were still struggling to identify whether you can actually fulfill it or not. Okay, so this is something that perhaps can relate to us better, because I'm very sure if that is the scenarios that we have, I wouldn't think that you would take the recommended route. Okay, so again, it highlights the notions of how data should be understood as a resource. You have these informations, you have these route informations, you know what kind of vehicles you have, you know what are happenings on the road, you know how much important the events is, then you would be able to know what routes to take, when to go, when what kind of resource, what kind of additional resources you need to take in place. Data is a resources. Sorry, it's not. It's an N. It's a resources. Okay, it's a resource. All right. Another thing that I think very much related to the many of us in the domain of business or economics or management is the kind of common notions of the ERP. Okay, the enterprise resource planning. And this is I encountered this a lot, where people have started to assume that ERP is all about system. If you have a look at let's have a look at the ideas of ERP in the first place, which so that we can understand the issues properly. When we are talking about ERP, it's actually an enterprise-wide set management tools. It's not technology. It's not system. ERP is a management tools, where it actually containing the ability to link customer into complete supply chain. It's employing proven business processes for decision making, and it providing high degrees of cross-functional integrations. Again, none of the technology comes in yet. Okay, so and in turn, it should enable people to run their business with high levels of customer service and productivity and blah blah blah. As you can see in here, none of this actually technology related yet. Okay, not until you have incorporated the notions of enterprise system. Then when you have ERP system, it actually, then we are started to talk about technology. And this is some of the benefits which I am very much support. I very much agree with the benefits that has been claimed from the ERP. There's a notions of integrations of a single source of data, common data definitions, real-time system, increase productivity, reduce operating costs, improve internal communications. I agree. Okay. And also some benefits, external benefit, improve customer service, improve communications with suppliers and customers, enhance competitive positions, increase sales. I agree. I have no issues with that. But let's look at in a proper notions. Okay, so say we have these scenarios where we have marketing department, they have issues where they actually have to get the big customers, top three customers, for example, and then the finance will have to think about the delay, for example, that customer is actually the amount of time that the customers actually fulfill the payment term, and then the issues with the productions where we almost lost two of our best mechanics. When we look at these kind of scenarios, then the notions that we have there is not, again, it's not about system. So ERP plus system should enable you to allow everyone in the business understand the scenarios, understand the situations, and having the same amount of quality information. So in here, we should think about data commonalities. Is there anything that everybody actually needs to make their decisions? Is there anything that the marketing department can actually have in terms of data that make them a better decisions? It's not in marketing department yet. Probably it's actually in finance. Probably it's actually in productions. When they know that productions can actually fulfill about 50 meters, for example, of fabrics, you're not going to, the marketing should know, they shouldn't get a company that will actually put an order to produce 1,000, to expect us produce a 1,000 meters of fabric. Otherwise, it's absurd. Our integrity of the business is on the line. Sorry? Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Trial.
Okay. I think this shows there's a master room. Okay. All right. Another issues is that on the ERP implementations, that it actually will challenge the basic assumptions about what data mean to different parts of the business. When we're talking about productions, for productions data, it can actually mean a different thing for finance, okay? Because they started to look at the amount of money that they have to spend on parts or maintenance and whatnot. So the same data, but it understood different way. Some of the things is about data sharing. Currently the spirit, be that small, medium enterprises or large enterprises, the issues has always been the same. You have the data, but not many people wants to share the data, especially the quality data. So when we start to look at that, if we only able to address those issues, we would be able to have a flawless process on how we should execute based on the theory that ERP actually offers us. The notions of integrations, the notions of ability to actually look at from multiple departments and whatnot. Okay, so the fact that many are struggling, be that small enterprises, small medium enterprises to large businesses alike. Okay, so I just want to highlight this actually comes this year on March. There's an article saying that 16 famous ERP disasters. And this is a major businesses. This is not a small businesses like Hershey, Nike, Revlon, and there's some more. Even big businesses having this problem. So this is not something that is inherent to small businesses, but it is actually might related to the understanding despite the size of the business, whether you have some strategy in place to make sure that everybody understood and able to appreciate the values of data as resource. Okay. And ideally, if it is, then we should be able to have a much better way to achieve success. So let me just summarize the whole thing with some strategies to leverage data resource. So I've been giving so much issues, right? So I should at least offer some solutions to it. All right. First, if I can suggest that, let's cultivate the culture of making sure everybody understand the business processes. The marketing should understand its business processes. The finance should understand its business process. And then the productions make sure that they understand the business process. Once each and every department understand its business process, get them to the habit of understand how that processes might affect other departments, other parts of the business. Because we want to make sure the data that we are going to get later on is the relevant data, and make sure that it is data that will be and will enable us to fuel a better decision making. In other words, we want to get informed business decisions. We don't want to make a business decision. We want to make an informed business decisions. And the second one is acknowledge and address the disparate data issues. I'm very I'm a big fan of Michael Brackett, where he actually addressed these issues. He bluntly addressed these issues where many of the companies get into this habit of making or swiping the dirt, the issues of the bad data under the carpet, rather than acknowledging and addressing it. Okay, so he put it in really nice, where he put it as a disparate data life cycle, where in this case, when a company is suffer with can't find the data, can't trust the data, can't access the data, and when everybody is uncertain about the data, and people will start to create their own data. And I've seen this a lot, be that small, medium enterprises, even huge bank industries have this kind of issues. So again, I think we have to acknowledge and we have to realize that it is something that we have to address, because otherwise we will end up with the same cycle that we have all data, but we have no idea how to use it. What worse is that if the data is not integrated and it is not documented. The second one, the third one is we have to start to think about define the ownership of critical data elements. We should build a status quo for data integrity and quality, not only the ownerships of the physical server, but also who owns this data in terms of who actually responsible. If something wrong with the data in productions, who actually in charge of making sure that this data should be of good quality. Should you rectify in terms of process? Should you rectify in terms of entry process? So we have to build, but still someone has to take responsibilities. It should not be just pushed towards the system or the IT guys to actually rectify it, because when it comes to entry, it may not be the IT guy that actually key in those informations in. Okay. And last but not least is that ensure all stakeholders understand how and why decision has been made. And importantly, that it will be adhered to. So when it comes to that, like for example, starting from tomorrow, we're going to make sure that we're going to look at the data quality. Let's look at whether there are important data that we have. There are some issues with the data redundancy. Is there any data where we actually having a lot of times missed because of no one actually bothers to key in properly? So we have to build that understanding. We have to build that awareness. We have to make sure that they understand these decisions comes or triggered by the data that you fuel in, you pump into the system. And just want to reiterate my point here. So now that COVID have started, a lot of open data, which actually you can use to sort of stimulate your discussions in the company, like the amount of demand globally, locally of your product, perhaps. Take this opportunity. Take this opportunity and take your time to actually reflect and assess, because you will need this opportunity to leverage the data resource. And again, if I can go back to Einstein principles, that problems cannot be solved with the same mindset that created them. If the issues is with the mindset that people will just pump in whatever data despite the quality, then you won't be able to solve the issues with such mindset. There should be some hard ways to actually pain and gain to actually put in place. And some companies actually asking this: is there any silver bullet? Is there any way that actually I can do with no pain and it's suddenly put everything is in place? Well, I can guarantee for sure, and this is I know for sure, there's no silver bullet, and silver bullet just doesn't exist when it comes to leveraging your data resource. Let me sum up with Peter Drucker points. If you want something new, if you want something better, then you have to stop doing something old. And that old could be the habits that we have in managing the data. So that will be all. I hope that sort of sums up the point that I have. And I'm really, my sincere apology for the scenarios happen back at the back. So I hope that's won't distract you from the points that I'm trying to highlight in these presentations. And thank you. pass the session back to the MC. Thank you. The moderator, sorry. Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sure. Sure.
Now you should hear me as well. Absolutely. Pretty surprised. Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead. Thank you. You are very welcome to come to join us in Zurich. Nevertheless, I have to say that as you know, I'm currently on vacation, so I'm not just in Zurich in Switzerland. I'm somewhere in the somewhere in the mountains of Greece. So a little bit far away. No problem at all. So I'm very happy to be part of your excellent conference. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Adonis Emmanuel Fragakis, and I'm the founder and director at Zurich Elite Business School.
Most welcome, and thank you so much. It's always great to get this kind of surprises. I didn't expect the video, so it's the add-on that it's always welcome. Thank you. Thank you. I think due to the technical issues, perhaps it's better that you share the presentation. I think it will be better. Yeah, sure. Yes, and I hope everybody can see. Just wait a second, please. Yes, great. So, first of all, I would also like to congratulate Polynema University and yourself, the committee, for organizing this conference. It's in these difficult times, it's not self-understandable that this kind of conference take place. So I'm sure that you showed the required assertiveness and resilience to be able to get all these people together today and to come together from many countries of the world. And my congrats for that. And also my very best regards to Indonesia. Many years ago, during the time I was working as business consultant, I did many strategic and finance projects in Southeast Asia. It has been in Singapore, but also in Indonesia as well, in Jakarta. It has been a great time. So it's I'm very happy and an honor to get back to people from Indonesia, and especially from your well-known university. So I'll try to keep the presentation short, not more than 25 to 30 minutes. We had also a very interesting presentation up front. Thank you so much also from the colleague from Malaysia. So, but I assume that now the audience starts getting a little bit tired. So for this reason, I try to emphasize on some key points, and I ask everybody to try to interact, to ask questions, so that hopefully everybody gets a value from this presentation. What I've scheduled to show you is a model how you could, as academics, develop industry-linked faculties, business faculties, differentiate from competition, apply hands-on and practical-oriented learning within your programs, develop partnerships with the industry, which is supposed to be a good thing within the academics, and of course, by looking on the numbers, to try to increase student numbers. Competition has been becoming very, very tight. So in the last decade, within all over the world, in all academic and educational markets. So in order to differentiate from competition and increase student numbers and tuition fees, it's really not an easy thing. I think there was an input from the colleague up front that there is a technical problem, or not. So does everybody see clearly the presentation? Dr. Noor, could you perhaps check it? Okay, great. Okay, so you saw the video, so I would like here just to mention that we have been doing the business for the last 16 years with the main focus really the practical oriented education, applied business programs, and due to the fact that this practical orientation has been the focus of our business school, we managed to build up industrial partnerships within the heart of the European industry. And this is Switzerland, Germany, and Austrian, which are supposed also with France to be the four strongest industries in Europe. And perhaps also something additional regarding the presentation. Normally, you would expect me today, due to the fact that we had very difficult times due to the pandemic, to present you something that would have to do with something online. When I showed you on page 2 that I show you something new, something innovative, I'm convinced that the first thought that came into your mind was, okay, we're going to hear something about online education. My question is, no, it will not be the case. It will not be the case because perhaps I'm a professor of strategy. And if you ask me what is strategy, Adonis, I would respond that strategy is to try to do things and activities or not to do things and activities in a different way than your competition does. It's like, to give you the example of the stock exchange. If you have a stock price that was priced by $100 and suddenly it increased due to something that happened in the stock market to $200, and everybody starts buying this stock, then everybody will do the same. Will buy the same stock, so to say. But the key issue of strategy is again to do things in a different way. And by now, all schools and all universities worldwide are focusing on online education. And if you ask me, is it something that will be successful? I will respond that it's something that had to be done due to the pandemic. Many universities were scheduling before the pandemic to enter the online business, or have already entered the online business, online education business. But is it going to differentiate from the competition by increasing my revenues as a university, increase my student numbers? I will not be so sure. For Indonesia, if you ask me, is it important to enter the online education business? I will respond absolutely, yes, but not due to COVID, due to the fact that Indonesia is a huge country. So also 10 years ago and 15 years ago, it has been a must to enter the online education business. And of course, by now, it's highly demanded to do so. So coming back to the presentation, this diagram shows how business education works by now. It has been working for the last 100 years, a little bit more than a century. You have the business school. On the one side, you have the corporate life on the other side, and these two areas are being separated. In the best case, some business schools send students for internships to corporations for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and this is all about. And this, we thought almost 20 years ago that it had to change. We wanted to create something new, something that will enhance the practical orientation and also the skills portfolio of our students. Next slide, please. So let's start with some data and some facts to give you an insight about some developments in the last decade globally. 3 worldwide leading business schools in INSEAD from Fontainebleau in France, Harvard Business School and IMD in Lausanne, which are supposed to be 3 of the top 10 business schools worldwide. They conducted a worldwide study in the MBA programs, and the results were very clear. For the time, pretty surprising that first of all, students worldwide were demanding a higher practical orientation of MBA programs and also a higher personalization. And just to clarify the term personalization, what it means, to give you an example, if during my MBA, I work as a project manager and I have, for example, an issue with an important client with BMW. I'm having an automotive project at BMW. I have an issue. We have a conflict with the client and I don't know how to solve the problem. Students in this study were expecting the business school to help them. It has been a new idea, so to say, because until this time, the business school, all business schools and universities worldwide were thinking that my job is to do some good lectures, to teach strategy and marketing and finance and conflict management, and what happens afterwards. So outside of the university, it's not my job, it's the student's job. And for the first time, an indicator came there, a worldwide indicator, where students of worldwide leading business schools were saying, actually, no, actually, I don't expect the business school just to teach, but I also expect to support me in my daily business. Then, in the next slide, you see that I think 1 year later, conference took place in Barcelona, and the results were exactly the same. So the representatives from leading business schools, global leading schools, joined the conference, and the results were exactly the higher practical orientation and the individualization of the teaching. And of course, you can imagine that nothing happened after these first indicators. So in the next slide, thank you, Dr. Noor. It's very kind of you for supporting me. We are exactly, and the results didn't, the bad results didn't wait to come in the next years. I'm showing you some information from Forbes about, I would say, almost current numbers of 1 year ago, of the best US business schools, some of them the best worldwide. The highest ranked business schools in the US began to report significant declines in the first bullet point, experienced double-digit declines. In 2019, Duke Fuqua Business School full-time applications have fallen by almost 15%. You can imagine until this time, the applications were increasing annually for 10 to 20%, and suddenly they declined for 15%. So if you count also the increase in the previous years, it has been a decline of 30%. You can imagine how big the shock has been. Yale School of Management, almost 60%. Dartmouth College Tax School of Business, another leading business school, 22.5%. In 2018, the University of Michigan, decline of 8.5%. Harvard, almost 5%. UC Berkeley Haas School of Business, 7.5%. Wharton, 6.7%. Another number one or top 3 business school in the US. Stanford, almost 5%. Chicago, top 5 in the US, 8.2% declines. And so all top 10 business schools in the US, and I would say top 10 business schools in the US are almost top 20 worldwide, they saw a drop of about 6% in applicants, which are for the business schools, significant numbers, especially also for the financial capabilities. So on the next slide, some additional input, just to give you an insight about how the situation has been in worldwide leading business schools before the pandemic. So the dean of another leading US business school, the University of Rochester Simmons School of Business, said that 10 to 20%, I repeat the number, 10 to 20% of the top 100 MBA programs in the US would likely close in the next few years. So in the worst case, he's saying 20 of the 100 top MBA programs in the next few years will not exist anymore. The dean of another leading business school, Duke, said that top 10 business schools have had double-digit declines. Again, the information that I showed you before. And another information that reached me during the time I was myself in the US, in Washington, D.C., was that the University of Illinois decided, one of the oldest and most traditional MBA programs in the US, decided to close the full-time MBA program. It has been, I was at an MBA conference at that time in the US, and I can remember the faces of my US colleagues. Everybody was shocked by this information. So, next slide, please. So all the discussions, also before the pandemic, this is important to say, has been about what to change, what to do in a different way, because if we continue this way, things will not look pretty nice for us in the next years. And there was, let's say, one information within the media in the US about the Simmons School of Business, that they managed to get stable application numbers because it has been the first business school to focus on STEM education and also to add 2 years optional practical training to its MBA program. And it has been the only MBA program that actually managed to achieve that. So it has been actually, if you put this information, if you remember the information of the worldwide study of Harvard, INSEAD, and IMD, that they were talking about a higher practical orientation. Again, it was in 2011, and the conference in Barcelona in 2012. Okay, we had now, it lasted 7 years, 6 to 7 years. And there was one business school in the US that started applying the results of the studies. So the whole idea you can see on the next page. I'm trying to visualize a little bit to make it clearer for you, because you know that a picture is stronger than 1,000 words. The idea has been, and please believe me, when developing these programs 20 years ago, it hasn't been so easy. It's always so with innovations, to try to bring these two parts together. On the one side, the business school, and on the other side, the corporations. And to develop different modules and be sure that the programs as they are by now, they haven't been so 16 years ago. We started with one module, we developed a second module, a third module, a fourth module. And this way we tried to develop this bridge between the business school and the corporations. With the main focus of, you can see below the box of corporations, to enter corporate life and to develop. Perhaps in the next slides, I'm adding some words, but not the 1,000 ones, to develop the hard and soft skills of students. Not only in the next slide, please. To develop. So one of the main focus has been, you see it underlined, the hard, to develop the hard and soft skills of the students, not only on campus, because every university tries with also soft skill courses to develop the skills of the students, but to leave the business school area, to enter the companies area, and to develop the hard and soft skills really within the enterprises. This has been the idea, and this has been the case that we have been applying within several industries that I will show you later on in the last years. So what we did with that is, remember the study of INSEAD, Harvard, and IMD, to increase the practical orientation. By increasing the practical orientation, by entering the companies, to increase the individualization, to help the student in the BMW project solve the conflict with his customer, not based on only theoretical stuff, but on the job, to give him advices in his project to solve the conflict. So in the next slide, you can have a summary, visual summary again, of the different areas that we developed our modules. So on the top, you see we have a bachelor, MBA, DBA courses. They are typical courses that you can find at every university worldwide. You see on the right side the box, this happens within the business school. And then we continue with business simulation games. There are games that we developed for almost every industry. We developed simulation games for the production sector, for the banking sector, for the pharmaceutical, healthcare, oil, energy, consumer goods. And these take place within the business school, but also within the companies. And within 2 or 3 days, it's important to understand, they are not courses that take place over a semester, over 2 semesters or 3 semesters. Within 2 or 3 days, the students fully understand all the processes and interdependencies that happen within an industry. So that by finishing the courses and getting back, especially if they are young graduates, about 23, 24, 25, 27, they don't have any experience. After these 3 days, they have an overview about all the procedures that happen within the industry. So then we have additional modules where you see on the right side the box. Now we enter the corporations. We did that with the business simulation games, and we visit the corporations and do on-the-job skills development of the students. Again, remember the typical MBA bachelor courses on the top. They take place within the business school. And then we have the business simulation games, It's like an executive summary of each industry. And then we enter the companies and we do on-the-job skills development with theoretical material, but also practical application. Again, I gave you the example of the students that we had, the project manager at BMW, or we had another student who was the team leader in the development on the first Wi-Fi antenna in airplanes. So the first airplane, Airbus airplane, that was developed before the Olympic Games in Peking in China. I think it was 2008. At that time, Airbus was developing the technology of Wi-Fi antennas for its transatlantic flights, and the team leader was a student of us, and he had some issues due to the fact that he had employees from all over the world, and he was a young guy from Spain, and he didn't have the intercultural experience to deal with all these issues. You can imagine, you have a person from Brazil, from the US, from Canada, from China, from India, from Malaysia, perhaps from Indonesia, whatever. And what his business coach was doing, gathering all his challenges and try with him on the job to solve these challenges with him. And we have another area, the off-the-job skills development modules that takes place in the free time of the students. Now you can see, of course, due to COVID, we also had to modify. We also have to switch into online modules, and some of our tools and materials and lectures, they had to take place online. But again, just think of the strategic issue. What is strategy? To do the different things than your competition does. The differentiation hasn't been the online courses or the online skills development. The differentiation has been the on-the-job and off-the-job skills development. Now, due to COVID, that some of these lectures take place online, this is another issue. So in the next slide, I tried again to go a little bit deeper and showing you where we tried to put emphasis on. So we had specific modules also online, meanwhile, again, due to COVID, for the personalized soft skills development of the students. We also tried that we developed this kind of modules, that all this material that the students were learning within the business school, let's say strategic management courses, marketing courses, supply chain management courses, got directly applied to the work environment. Now, a very important point, and I kindly ask you to put emphasis on this. We just wanted to develop the modules to help the students, to support the students to develop the skills they needed in the daily business and become what we say, and meanwhile is a worldwide term. Wherever you go, also in the US, they put meanwhile a lot of emphasis on the fit for the workforce term. Fit for the workforce, I'm sure you understand what it's meant. It's interesting because if you ask parents, you can imagine also when they send the students to us, they are we have some of the most expensive programs worldwide. And when you ask them, why are you sending your kids to our business school? They're telling you two things. The first thing is because I want my kids to be educated, to be well respected in the society. And the second thing is because I want them to earn money. And it's obvious that it's an expectation of all the parents worldwide that the kids earn also some decent salaries when they graduate from the programs, universities. But the question has been how to earn money if you are not fit for the workforce. How to earn money if you have learned, if you have invested 3 years or 4 years for a bachelor, an additional 1 or 2 years for a master or an MBA program, and you learn things that actually are not being asked in the job market. And when we talk about the skills, we mean now really that we have some diagrams of 30 skills, 30 management skills that we try to develop with our students. Here's some examples. We talk about project management skills, critical thinking, problem-solving skills, very important. Also, my colleague from Malaysia before with a very interesting slide of Albert Einstein. It has been really very, very interesting to invest 55 minutes to try to solve the problem or to find the solution and then to try to solve the problem. So the analytical skills are required, and we work pretty much on focus for the analytical skills of the students. These 55 students to find actually what's my pain within the company, what's my pain within the project, why does my client at BMW or at the Airbus suppliers, why do they have some issues with me? Why do they have some issues with the project? Why are they not satisfied with the project development? We have team working skills, also very important that you don't learn actually within the typical theoretical programs within the universities. Interpersonal skills, very important. Self-awareness and awareness of others, especially for the younger generation. The self-awareness, it is a challenge, and I could say that every year it becomes worse. You have the 23, 24, 25 old kids, or the 18, 19, even worse, when they come to the business school and you ask them what's actually your weaknesses, and they respond, I don't have any. I don't have any weaknesses. I have many strengths. I can tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strengths, but I don't have any weaknesses. And in order to bring them to the position to see that there are not just a few weaknesses, but there are many weaknesses that we have to work together in the next 3 years, on the next 2 years. It's on an annual basis, it has been becoming one of the main challenges of us. Emotional intelligence, everybody knows it's also a very important issue. The higher the emotional intelligence, the more successful a manager becomes over his career. So again, these unique approved systems, customized business education exactly to the students, employees needs on the one side, and to the company's needs as well, in order to make the students fit for the workforce, for the workforce that will be paying later on the salaries for them. If you ask me, is there a specific industry, Adonis, that I will be able to apply or not apply these kind of models? I could say, no, you can apply it on almost every industry. And here you see so many industries that we have been gathering the experience in the last 16 years: energy, oil and gas, automotive, management consulting, technology consulting, pharmaceutical, healthcare, of course, banking in Switzerland, a strong sector. Insurance, we have been working with the #2 insurance company in Europe. Telecommunication, electronics, and the IT business, real estate, HR, sports, waste management. Again, agricultural management, you can apply it due to the model and the nature of the model. You can apply it everywhere. It's not about the industry. It's about the specific modules that you can apply, and they can be applied actually on every industry. And now, by approaching the end of the presentation, I hope I kept my promise not to exceed the 30 minutes. Dr. Noor, please correct if I'm wrong. I just wanted to show you some facts and figures because the theory is good, but I'm sure that you would like to hear, okay, which are the concrete experiences with this kind of models. So what we managed to reach is 3 to 5 times higher tuition fees than our competition. And just imagine, we have been, and we are a relatively young business school, 16 years in the market. It's not a very long track record. We have been competing with universities that have been existing in the last 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years. So in order, just to give you an example, a typical MBA program in Switzerland costs about 40,000 euros, or let's say dollars. Now, due to the exchange, it's a little bit more, perhaps $50,000. In Germany, is about $30,000, and we are charging our customers $130,000, $150,000. But it's not about the total number. What I want to say with that is that it can be that in Indonesia, the MBA fee are $1,000 or $2,000, and with this kind of model, you can reach $8,000 or $10,000. So it's that due to the differentiation, due to the fact that you are offering much more to the students, to the companies than the competition, you can ask, and this is the nature of strategy again, the results of your strategic decisions and actions, you can reach higher tuition fee. You have another advantage that we had over the last years, the business simulation games. It opens the doors to almost every industry sector. I can give you a good example in the banking area. You have in Switzerland very strong, reputable banks. And when we were approaching them for our MBA programs, the door was closed. Big banks were working together with Harvard, with London Business School, with IMD in Lausanne. And then on a second step, we said, okay, let's try it perhaps a little bit more decent. And we were offering these 2 or 3 days business simulation games where the banks understood, I have young graduates coming from the university. They don't have any bloody idea about banking. And within 2 or 3 days, they can learn everything about banking. It's a good idea. Okay, for the 2 or 3 days, not for the MBA of 2 years, but for the 2 and 3 days, I'll bring these guys into my bank. And this has been actually the door opener. And they were so excited that on the second step, say, these guys are doing a good job. Okay, perhaps I'll send some of my employees to the MBA programs. Another interesting issue is that you don't become just an education provider like every university worldwide, but also a talent source. I didn't mention that because, again, I didn't want to exceed the 30 minutes. You can also try concurrently also to find high potentials for the customers. So if here is the business school and here is the company, you can also go even more one step before and try to find the students to bring to the business school and to the company. So you can be the talent sourcer and at the same time the skills developer. Another advantage that we had, and every actually business school, meanwhile, we are not the only business school doing this kind of models. We had many other business schools, especially in the European area, that copied our models. Is a cross-selling. What do I mean by that? How do you try to sell your courses at companies? You send emails, you send perhaps booklets, you try to reach via phone. Meanwhile, if you say an email to a HR manager, nobody responds. If you call them, they don't have much time, perhaps 30 seconds, 60 seconds on the phone, and you have to try to arrange a meeting. And due to this concept, due to the fact that some of the modules take place within the company, you don't have to do the sales job that every university has to do if you work together with a university, with the companies, excuse me. You talk with the managers, you are there, you invest in order to give you perhaps it's better an example. We were working together with a very big energy company in Germany, and we had the skills development modules within the company. It has been in Munich, in Germany, and we had at one of the meetings one member of the board. Normally, you cannot reach a member of the board of a big energy company to talk about this kind of programs. They send you to the HR guys or ladies. So we had the member of the board because the student was working on an important project, and he was so excited after the 1.5 hours when he saw the development and the results, the quality of the project results of the student, that he said, hey, this is good what you are doing. I have 15 guys who would like to do a project management course. And by the way, now I'm thinking of another project where we have so many conflicts, and I want to send you 20 guys to do a conflict resolution course. So this 1.5 hour skills development of the students help us acquire one course, project management course of 15 people, and one conflict resolution course of 20 people. Another advantage has been the students' employability, due to the fact that they are very fit for the workforce, as we said before. And this led us to have 95% employability directly, not 3 months after, as in usual rankings like Financial Times, Wall Street, or 6 months after graduation. We have 95% directly after employability after graduation. What does it mean? 95 of our 100 students find a job directly after graduation. And you can see on the last bullet point, with the very high average salaries, we are, I think, employability, we can see on the next slide, I think we are top 3 and top 10 in salaries in Europe. Yeah, you can see this has been actually a pretty new ranking that was created with a focus only on employability and average salaries. What was the reason behind that? When we asked the market research company which did that, they said because we think that it's the most important thing for an MBA program. It's about if you find when you graduate, you find directly a job, and how good is this job? And one of the indicators, not the sole indicator, but one of the indicators are the average salaries. Now, regarding employability, we are 95. If I look on the other business school, actually we are number 1 in Europe. So the question here that I would like to give you as a value from this presentation is, I know that many universities worldwide currently try to enter ranking. Meanwhile, there exist so many rankings, but employability and average salaries play an important role. And perhaps these kind of models, you shouldn't apply on every bachelor or MBA program, this kind of model, but these kind of practical-oriented models could help you enter rankings or improve your position at the rankings. So, again, executive summary, what I tried, and I hope, guys, so much that I was successful on that, and it has been linked with real value for you to show you how models, innovative models of business education could look like in order to help you to develop unique industry-linked business faculties, differentiate from your competition, apply hands-on practical-oriented learning within your degrees, develop, very important also for universities, especially also on the research area, good, sustainable, and profitable partnerships with the industry. It shouldn't be just on this area. Again, if you have acquired the industry partner, then you can do many other things, and as I showed you before, you can do many other things with this company. We sold some other courses for our simulation teams. You can perhaps develop with a company a research project, but you are there. You have earned him as your partner. Increase the student numbers and tuition fees, and again, achieve uniqueness and excellence in business education, which has been also the emphasis, the main focus of my presentation. Again, thank you so much for being so patient and listen to an old guy like I am for meanwhile more than 30 minutes. I hope you enjoyed.
I think I can combine the answer for both because it's kind of geared in the same way. So I can combine my answer for both. Yeah. All right. Okay. So regarding the data, so be that I'm sure now most of the business is actually eager to use the social media data. So not only the one that you keep inside the business, but also the data that actually come in by maybe some of our customers in social media. So in terms of social media data, okay, so how do we make sure that our data is the one that we actually use is of good quality, is of reliable value? First, we have to again understand the issues that we want to address. So these data actually offers insight, but that only one of the side of the story. If only we able to sort of narrow down what kind of things that we are looking for, then we can pinpoint the kind of source that we should look for. Okay, so let me illustrate with one example on the research that we have recently completed on the national study on vaping and e-cigarette use. So the common findings that comes from the literatures is actually people opt for this alternative of smoking because of the health concern. So there has been a couple of information circulated that is actually a healthier approach. So we actually carried out the survey and we included those informations. But what I came to realize is that these informations come from previous studies, and some of these studies may be too confined to certain kind of economical situations or some structure of economy or structure or culture which is different from Malaysia. So I took the initiative to actually look at the social media data. And when we look at the social media data, I have to be very careful on curating and selecting the source, because of some of these platforms has been used by the vaping companies to actually promote their product, and so they pump in certain kind of information which is practically incorrect. So I opted for Twitter, and then I collected quite a number of original tweets, and I examined the source of the tweets. I opt not to look at the retweet, because that would be prone for people actually like the tweet bot to actually put in a lot of the similar tweets. So what I opted, I look at the granular tweets, which is originally posted by the users, and I went through some of the content, and I examined the content. So there are some text mining, some technical undertakings involved. But what I want to highlight is that I have to examine, because I am familiar with the context, so I have to examine the value of the information, or the insights came from the data. So I think not so much of that you have to select reliable information, but what is more important than that is that you really have to know what is the problem you are trying to address by using social media data. Is it necessary that you have to use the social media data, and are you aware of the caveats of the weaknesses of using the social media data? Are you aware of how to actually eliminate the noise in the social media data? So those are some of the things that perhaps we should be focusing more. In terms of technical, I'm very sure that tons of resources online on how to get the data out from those platforms and how to analyze it. But those are some of the issues that perhaps I can pinpoint how to assess whether something is reliable or not. Okay, so assess your questions and assess your sources in terms of whether those sources is offering good insights on how those comments or how those concern actually posted in, whether in tweets or whether in any other social medias. Okay, so those are one of the things. So this will relate to how SMEs actually survive the I just want to, I'm trying to look at the questions again. Oh, sorry, I realize I have the cameras on. Okay, so another thing that I want to, sorry for, another thing that I want to address is on the social media for SMEs. How do we actually make use of these social medias for data in particular? I think it's more related to data, right? Data on how do we actually leverage this for SMEs? SMEs, what I can see is that the strength of SMEs, you have, one of the things is that you have a much more simpler processes. So the effort for you to understand the process that you have inside the business is much more easier as compared to big businesses where you actually will have a complex kind of decision-making processes and whatnot. So when you have a much simpler processes, you can identify what are the relevant data, you can identify how much you have to, how much effort you have to put in place to start recording, for example, in proper inventory. And in fact, just yesterday, I met one of the SMEs and I said, you don't have to procure any advanced and any big software. You can start as simple as Microsoft Access. Get the habit into recording. What is important is get the habit into recording the data, because if it has been recorded manually, the chances is that if the book's gone, then all the records is gone. So get the habit into recording. And they mentioned actually the data is actually sometimes recorded twice in a week. So which is that some of the days you might have missed some of the data, especially when it comes to inventory, especially when it comes to sales. It's very important data. So it's not something that you can just do once or twice in a week. It has to be part of the process, of daily process. So I think this is what is important for SMEs to realize that those data is important, not only the financial data, but also some other data, for example, on the how many maintenance machines actually have been undertaken in a month, what kind of raw materials. So this kind of information is usually not well recorded in some of the SMEs, especially in manufacturing sectors. But that's actually sad because manufacturing sector is actually data intensive. You are relying so much on the data. So to miss these opportunities, I think would be very, very sad. So I think what SMEs can start doing is start to have a proper awareness how those data actually may be of value to your business. Start small, business-oriented, business-driven, not technology-driven, and start to have awareness on how to use the data, not just to keep, but how to use those data for strategic decision making. And I'm very sure with the proper data management in place, with this e-commerce and whatnot, we have actually the opportunities to level the playing field for SMEs to compete with large businesses. Okay, so I think that's some of the points that I can highlight. Thank you. Yeah. I'm not promoting Microsoft Access. I mean, like, so any simple tools that you have in your computers, yeah.
Yes. The interaction is a general challenge in online training. In fact, it's a very good question here, Nobrita. Just some few advices based also on our experience in the last 6 months, where we try to apply the more online training that we used to do before. First of all, to try to keep the sessions pretty short. We used to have lectures over 8 hours and split in 1.5 hour sections. And meanwhile, a section doesn't last longer than 30 to 45 minutes. And one day section goes not more than half a day. Another important point would be to try in the trainings to integrate projects, to integrate real-life cases, so that you are not just the only one giving input or the lecturers to the students, but in a sense you oblige the students to send you feedback as well, but from their real-life jobs, from their daily business, from their business experiences. And this, so our experience shows that this increased hugely then the interaction of the students, because I come back to the point that I presented the pain points of the students in their daily business, and the demands of the study in 2011. We want to have a higher practical orientation and personalization. If you try to personalize, to individualize the in the training the needs of the students by addressing them or letting them address them within the training. This, of course, increases hugely the interaction. And by trying, of course, to find the one or other innovative area, now talking about just simple theoretical lectures, to try to find the one or other innovative area that other competitors don't cover within your market. If it was what you meant with the question, now regarding the second one, I'm not so sure what you mean. If the uniqueness is, I guess you mean is not sitting enough. And I'm also not very sure what you mean by that. If you mean that you try as a corporation, as a business school, as an academic institution to be different, and if you say uniqueness is not enough, I interpret this, what you say, as that you are not different enough. And if you are not different enough, then you are not different. You don't have this uniqueness. It's important when you analyze the entire market, you analyze your competition to find exactly these factors in your business, and there a very important role of the area of Dr. Mira plays in the whole business, the data gathering and analyzing, selecting the right data, which will lead you to focus on this specific data that shows you where you differentiate from the competition, or if you don't do it yet, which are these data within the market leading to a specific area that no other competitor covers. And this is your opportunity. I remember, again, because I'm not just a professor of strategy, I have been applying in business consulting as a strategy consultant, all the stuff that I have been teaching to the students for the last 20 years, actually. And when I started almost more than 2 decades ago, it was a lot of paperwork, and we were doing some Porter's 5 forces, SWOT analysis, etc., etc. And meanwhile, the job of a strategy consultant, again, what does mean strategy consultant? The guy who gathers all the important information and develops advices how to differentiate from the competition, change increasingly due to the area of Dr. Mira, because now you have millions, billions of data that you have to analyze, to select. On the one side, you have access to much more information that we used to have 30 years ago or 25 years ago. But on the other side, you have to have a very good mind, very clear mind, to look on the details, to look on the commas, and try again to pick this data, which will lead you to the uniqueness you need if you want, again, if your strategy is about to differentiate from competition. By the way, of course, I'm not the strategy guy who invented the theory about competitive strategies. Of course, it's Michael Porter, the very well-known Harvard Business School professor in strategy. He was the guy who, so in the 70s and 80s, for the first time, presented these theories based on empirical studies. He analyzed more than 500 companies in the US. You just have to imagine. It hasn't been a theoretical work. He analyzed more than 500 companies in 100 industry segments in the US. And his results were in the 70s and 80s. And meanwhile, it's, I would say, the most common strategy worldwide. If you want to succeed and if you want to reach a high return on the investment, you have to be different. You have to be unique. What if you talk, dear Gogik, about certain risks? They are always there. Perhaps as an advice, based on my experience there as a consultant, is perhaps try, if again I understand correctly your question, not to enter full risk by doing 100% of your services or products different than the competition. In the existing businesses, here as an example, the universities, you have already your bachelor degrees, your the certificates, diplomas, MBA, master, doctorate degrees. Keep them. Do the business as usual, but perhaps try to develop some new program, some innovative program in a specific section. I always recommend, if you do that, perhaps rebrand, not just with the same name, the old name. You can rebrand, but based on the context, based on the system, based on the enterprises that you are in, it's not so easy. Try there to focus on a small niche, find a niche, find several niches, and then try to develop unique services or products or programs, whatever, in these specific niches. And this way, you don't revolutionate your entire systems and activities, just a small part of the business. Dr. Noor, may I perhaps say something at the end of the conference? May I add something? Again, because it's not obvious that you organize at these times, challenging, turbulent times, these kind of conferences. I really adored, I'm excited and surprised about your initiative of your university to do this kind of conferences, and to try to bring people together from all over the world to share important information that can also help the one or the other be different, be unique. My congrats to your university, to you as the committee. And of course, because I see meanwhile we have more than 68 participants. If you have, I also address it to you or Dr. Mira or all other participants. If you have any kind of questions, please feel free to come back with the questions, and we'll be very glad to advise, to support, to recommend, and any kind of questions in your business you would have. Again, thank you so much, and my very best regards to beautiful Indonesia as well as to Malaysia.
Yeah, if I can also share from my side, I would like to thank Prof. Adonis. Yeah, nice to meet you, Prof. It's an honor to have someone that is very inspiring and then have basically opened the mind of our educators, especially to look at how the business schools should be strategized and should be geared to actually serve the community and have an impact on the community at large. So thank you very much, Prof. Adonis, and also thank you, Dr. Dr. Indah, for the opportunities. And I would like to thank everyone, especially the director of Polynema Malang. It's really an honor Prof, to be part of this program. And to all committee, thank you so much. To all participants, all the best. Have you had an enjoyable and fruitful sessions in the conference? And please do keep in touch. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Sirajudin.
I am Nurul Bisa. I am Raya Emilia Farida. We are from State Polytechnic of Banjarmasin.
Welcome to STEP April 2020, Annual Management Business and Economic Conference, the virtual conference. We would like to present our report.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May we be bestowed with peace and prosperity. I would like to present an article entitled The Advantage and Disadvantage of Online Learning Due to COVID-19 in Student Perspective. Coronavirus disease 2019 has shifted various dimensions of human life. The word of learning is also
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Lutfi Jayanto. I'm a lecturer at State Polytechnic Malang, Indonesia. In the second annual Management, Business and Economic Conference, or second AMBEC 2020, I would like to deliver my presentation online. It is due to pandemic COVID-19 globally. Now, let's move on my presentation. Title of my presentation is Integrated Blended Learning Model Design with Offline Discipline.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Sirajudin.
I am Nurul Bisa. I am Raya Emilia Farida. We are from State Polytechnic of Banjarmasin.
Welcome to second MBA 2020 Annual Management Business and Economic Conference via virtual conference. Today we would like to present our paper entitled Suddenly Online, the Etiquette and Phenomenon of Online Learning and the 3 Years Diploma Accounting of Polytechnic Students.